For many, this heat, dust, and isolation remain the perception of agriculture. However, in the 21st century, agriculture is an exciting, high-tech sector that feeds the world.
Good morning, Earle. Thank you so much for meeting us on this cold and rainy morning.
Morning. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
We have heard about some of the things that you're doing, but please, will you share with us who you are and your background and what you're busy with?
No, thank you, guys. It's great to be on this side of the mountain. Yeah, so I'm a chartered accountant by trade, and spent way too many years in the auditing profession. At KPMG in Cape Town as well as overseas, and then decided to move out and do something different in the financial sector, and ended up with a fruit exports business in Paarl as financial manager, knowing nothing about fruit at that point in time. I come from the Western Transvaal originally, so that was quite a big...
Where, like Nelspruit area?
Potchefstroom, the Western Transvaal.
The other west.
Oh, Northwest, yeah. And spent 2 years as financial manager for this business, and started learning about fruit and fruit exports and meeting amazing people. And then moved from there into a more senior role as CFO for a very large corporate farming organization.
May we ask who?
Say again?
May we ask who it was?
Yeah, like with Capespan Farms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was with Capespan Farms for 6 years. Mm-hmm. Running the finances for all the different farms in the Northern Cape, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, which was basically my innings in the farming sector, learning from scratch how it works.
Must have been incredibly interesting. A huge learning curve to go and find all that stuff out.
It was a big learning curve, but the nice thing was moving around and traveling around the country, meeting different people all over South Africa. But then also having the corporate shareholder, that requires certain, level of financial reporting. So that immediately saw that combination of shareholders who expect something, but then the source is still farms, which is rural and in small places. And all the accountants that worked for us were based in small little towns or rural areas. So I spent 6 years doing that as CFO, and then I always wanted to do my own thing, wanted to do my own business, and you start approaching the age of 40, and the clock keeps ticking, and you're getting worried, and wife and kids and house and all of that. So it becomes more and more difficult as you get older to make that decision. And also, what are you going to do if you start your own business? What's it going to be? And then I had the idea to do what I do, keep doing that, but for smaller farmers and for family-run farms. So in essence, the idea was born to provide financial management services in the agri space. So, and I saw the need whilst traveling with Capespan, meeting various farmers, and there was just this general missing link of proper financial management that the farmers don't have, and that's how the idea was born. So I resigned and started the business, and it's now 6.5 years later. So I'm no longer, actually longer now, doing my own thing than I was with as CFO.
But how was that initial when you went into the office and said to your boss, "No, sorry, boss, I've got to go do my own thing now, doing what I'm doing now"?
Yeah, exactly.
How was that conversation?
It was a bit of a blur that whole week in terms of what have I just done and will it work? But luckily I had the support from my wife backing me up 100% and saying, go for it, now's the time. And when next month is the first month without a paycheck, you put in whatever is required. So the business started off in the first month, and just progressed from there. So I immediately started meeting farmers, talking to guys I knew in the fruit sector. When the word got out,
Yes.
I'm going on my own, it actually was very well received. I was very blessed, and the business immediately took off.
Oh, fantastic.
So what I thought was a need, and hoped that will be the sort of
So that's exactly
business case.
That's exactly where we started. We saw that there's a need for what we're doing, and it's 4 years down the line, and it has taken off.
Yeah.
So it's we always joke. We've got like an in-house joke between us, saying that if you stand around a braai and you arrived there, you knew you don't know anybody, and now you say, okay, who are you now? I'm Earle, I'm Dewald. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Now I'm a estate agent. Oh, okay, cool. I'm an accountant. Okay, cool. Nobody talks to the accountant. Okay, what do you do? I'm a photographer. Oh, really? What do you do? We always joke about that. And when we drive away, when we saw some awesome stuff, we say, aren't you glad you're not an accountant today? But you're getting the best of both of it now.
Absolutely. And it's the same, when people ask me, what do you do? I say, I do financial management for farms. So you do the books. And there's yes, we sometimes do the books, but that's not, that's not the
it's a little bit more than that.
It's a little bit more than that. It's and best of both worlds, absolutely, because I still get out and spend a lot of time, going places, seeing farms, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And having an office, with people that work there, but we're not 8 to 5 sitting behind laptops. So, and my clients are based in the most amazing places. It's just refreshing to get out
Exactly.
and go visit farms.
So if let's say I'm a farmer now or whoever, and they just don't know what they need, and they've heard that you do this now, and you get a phone call, hello, I'm Piet. And then Piet says, oh, look at you, I need you. What's the steps from there? What do you need to be able to help him?
And each farmer is different.
Yes.
And each business is different. So for me, what's very important is actually the personal connection. So I will meet a potential new client face to face.
The same with us.
You got to do that. So I will travel wherever.
There's no substitute for that.
No, exactly. And that's, it's back to sort of fundamentals and basics of interpersonal connection. So that is important for me, is to actually go meet the people and really try and understand what the need is. Our business is not a off-the-shelf sort of package that you buy and then magically the numbers are all sorted out. All the financial models that we build are customized exactly to the farmer's need and what they do. There's no just package that shows you how it needs to be done. So I'll meet the farmer, really try and understand the business. Definitely we spend a lot of time understanding the inside of the accounting. How is it done? Who does it? And so to give you an example, most of our clients do have a bookkeeper or an accountant on the farm or in the town.
Which is probably like one of the manager's wives or something like that.
Yes, so there's a level of administration done in the office or bookkeeping is done to a certain extent. And we need to establish, how's it done, the quality of the work, etc., before we can progress in terms of the financial management role. So what the financial management role means is I actually, or our team, we 6 people in the Stellenbosch office, we become the financial manager / CFO for that farmer. That's the business case, which means there's a lot more strategic input in terms of where's he going, long-term plans, acting as a professional soundboard, for the farmer, of which the accounting is the backbone.
Yes. So that would be like, I need to put up nets, for instance. What do you recommend? Do you have connections to get the best price? All those kind of things.
All those kind of things. A lot of scenario planning.
Okay.
So the older generation farmed, if I may say, a lot by gut feel. In terms of this block is not performing, so let's pull it out and let's just replant. That's where we come in and model in Excel all these financial scenarios to see what the cash flows would look like, how long it will take to pay off the nets. We help the farmer then to make the decision. So we provide the information and the calculations for him to justify his decision and to help him make the decision. And then finance applications, with banks for nets, for replants. So that's where we come in and we become the financial advisor for this business. And what works well is that your small, medium-sized agribusinesses, farms, don't need that role full-time.
Yes.
And that's why the business works. So we provide the service and it varies in terms of time that we spend with clients and what their needs are. So we've got clients where we'll probably spend a morning per month on this client. And we've got clients on whose accounting and financial management we work every day.
Sure.
So it really varies in terms of...
So different strokes for different folks.
Absolutely. Size of the business, the complexity, and what's needed. So for some clients, I am really just a soundboard, drinking coffee and listening to ideas. Sometimes feel like a psychologist, just hearing everything and just trying to clear the mind. And for many other businesses, we are involved in daily accounting, even making payments, to creditors. So providing a full in-house financial solution.
So if you've got, you say in 6 years, you've grown to the point where you've got 6 people in your office. It must mean that your business, as you said, your business has grown very nicely and it's performing well. So you must have some pretty incredible success stories with some people. Can you share that? Obviously, you don't need to mention names, but...
Absolutely. And one of the success stories is the people in the office. So to get quality accountants, 3 of them are chartered accountants, that has an affinity or loving agriculture and understanding agriculture. So to get that connection between your chartered accountant or management accountant, but you understand agri, is quite scarce. So everybody in the office it's a good team. They work well together, and they really support the growth path and where we're going. So that for me is a great story. We're not a bookkeeping firm. We're not an audit firm with lots of youngsters out of varsity doing their articles. So we are sort of a next level in terms of qualification and professional people in the firm. In terms of success stories, absolutely. So, starting small, my initial clients were focused Western Cape and Northern Cape. So we've got a strong footprint on the Orange River. In the first year, we opened an office in Uppington as well. So I've got 2.
Oh, wow.
There's 2 ladies working in Uppington, servicing a lot of table grape and raisin producers in that area. And for me, I just love going to the Northern Cape.
Yes.
So it's a great trip to go there, see the farmers and see what's going on. But the business has evolved where, in terms of the number of clients, has moved from small, medium-sized businesses, which we still have, but also to larger corporates for whom we do work. Many times a corporate farming or agribusiness needs certain work done, but they don't have the in-house capacity to do it. So there would be a full-time CFO and a strong staff complement, but still they don't have enough capacity to do feasibility studies, business plans, that kind of work. And that's where we get involved. So, I'm proud to say we service some of the larger businesses in South Africa. And what we started off just looking after fruit farms. That was the main aim because that's what I knew. And from there, it progressed to wine farms in and around Stellenbosch. which we saw that there's the same need.
It's a farm. Doesn't matter what they grow or what they raise or...
Exactly. It's a farm with a farm manager, with a winemaker, many times with the owner sitting overseas, and he needs someone to give him an update on the numbers and where's his business going. So it moved into wine farms. From wine farms in the Western Cape, a lot of farming businesses do cash crops like grains, lucerne, and even livestock. You'll typically find a mixed business. So we had to start looking into, how do you model cash crops? How do you model livestock? Then we got involved with a business in the Langkloof, which is an apple and pear farm, but also a chicken and piggery, with chicken broilers, with a butchery, with an abattoir, with a transport business.
I know those people, yeah.
So, two brothers who owns this business, and they are very entrepreneurial, but they needed, and they were growing at an immense speed in terms of the...
That's always the thing, is when you get to the point where you need to grow, is how the hell do you do it?
Yeah. So we said, look guys, we need to unpack everything here in terms of your finances. You don't know if you're making money out of pigs, chickens. Is the abattoir making money? Is the butchery making money? Let's start breaking up this business in the different components and measuring the components and seeing how it's performing. And that guy mentioned us in the Landbou Weekblad, also on Kykenet in a program with Hemelbesem. Mentioned our name, and the next thing...
Free marketing is always good.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So we haven't done any marketing apart from sponsoring a billboard at a school where my son is. So the business has grown just by word of mouth. So the next thing, we got a call from an ostrich and carrot seed and onion seed farmer near Oudtshoorn, saying he wants us to model his ostrich farm and his seed business. And that's how the thing went from fruit into agri. And I mean, there's not as I said, off-the-shelf financial model for an ostrich farm or seed business or whatever. We had to create it ourselves. What does the plan look like? How do you do the cash flows? What does the financial management plan look like? So, that's some of the success
Incredibly
stories.
interesting. And I would imagine that managing from the smallest farmer to the biggest guy must take some, you've got to be pretty flexible to be able to service them all and make them all happy. I mean, if all your clients are similar size, it would be a lot easier. But now you've got quite a spread. So that must take some doing.
And what I'm also picking up here is because he gets around so much to all the different industries and different growers, it's probably happening the same to him as what we're experiencing, is that people will phone you as to what's happening.
Yeah.
What's happening in the industry. And you can, without being a farmer, you
pick up trends.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello.
Morning.
So,
Hi.
Absolutely. To juggle all the clients is, in a consulting role, always a challenge.
yes.
That is your biggest challenge. Is you've got only so many hours and
Let's see how it goes.
you've got only so many hours daytime and staff availability.
Yeah.
So for me, that's probably the one of the most important parts of the role currently is client management, making sure everybody is looked after, especially our clients whom we do work on a month-to-month basis. Make sure they get service, they get the deliverables in time.
And do those guys, are they on like a fixed retainer thing with you?
Yeah, so for them they're on a fixed retainer, so there's X amount of work which we do for them every month.
Yes.
So managing the time availability and the capacity is critical, while still making sure there's a good quality product that gets out there. So quality management as well as the staff management is critical. And what we do try to manage is that we don't load the staff in the office to 100% of their capacity. So there's always some time available for ad hoc work or business plans. Someone phoning.
So if something comes in and it's urgent and that you need capacity to work on that, then you'll have somebody.
Then we can handle
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Cool.
Because I can get a phone call today from someone and I want to do the work, and then I don't need to go employ someone to do the work. I've got capacity. So, but it is difficult in a consulting role. Is to scale. How big can you go?
Yes.
And where do you want to be? What is your goal? What's your destiny?
What if you see to be a genuine need in agribusinesses, be it with growers or livestock or whatever you guys have done, where you've identified a need, not necessarily what you do, but just in general. It doesn't have to be like financial or media or management or anything like that. Just, is there anything that you have seen that growers, that if somebody stepped into that space, they could make a good career of it?
There's definitely in all aspects. There's about, let me go a step back. By being in the agri sector for 10 plus years, or more than that, you've built up quite a nice network of people. And for me, what my wife always say, I connect the dots between all these individuals. So the need that arises at a client could be anything from introducing a new fruit exporter, talking to someone that does economic benchmarking, talking to a top technical expert, talking to someone that's in technology, talking to a supplier. So there's lots of needs at clients. It's to pick up that need and making that connection. And for me, that's where a lot of the value that we do comes in. It's not just doing numbers in Excel and giving it to the client.
It's knowing, it's identifying a need and knowing somebody or an institution or a group or an organization that can fulfill that need and being able to introduce them to each other and seeing it work. I can imagine that is incredibly satisfying for you as well, to see the person's need being met.
But it comes from a place of trust as well.
Absolutely.
It's if Earle is going to recommend somebody, the chance of those two actually connecting is very good, instead of finding a Facebook ad, for instance, and phoning someone.
Yeah, absolutely. So and it is very fulfilling. So, and that's the sort of stuff where it's not, you can't measure it in rands and cents.
No.
A specific need in the South African space, if you want to pinpoint that, is definitely financial support from banks, proper funding. That is definitely an area where there's lots of room for improvement.
Did you listen to the podcast we did with Werner Opperman?
No.
They do investments in that, also created a specific product in the agri industry. Is where that you've got farmer A coming to you, I need to put up nets. You do the modeling for him and all the whole bank shoot, and then Werner organizes the funding. So it's not a bank. It comes from an investment firm. We should put the two of them together.
Yes,
his father used to be the CEO for Agri Western Cape for many years.
Okay.
Opperman,
Yeah.
Carl Opperman. Carl Opperman's son.
So that is over the last 2-3 years, a specific need that we're starting to see at all our clients is the investment and the proper funding, to have proper funding in place. So without pointing fingers at the banks, the South African agri space is ready for something, the next big step in terms of investments, in terms of other ways of funding, other means, not just your conventional sort of normal banking funding lines. lots of people wants to be in agri, especially over the last 2-3 years with COVID. Agri became the big buzzword. But it's amazing still when you talk primary production on the farm, how few investors and banks are keen for that sector.
But that's what Werner said to us. He said that there was a mandate that no agri investment. There was simply just a mandate. It's too volatile.
So that's where a lot of our focus are going into as well at the moment in terms of the business. So the consulting arm is quite strong, and that's something that will organically grow as we continue. But solving the investment space for primary production is for me personally a big goal, because the investors are keen to invest in processing and then the food supply.
Yes, the agri-business part of it, but not the agri there in the soil part of it.
Someone needs to still farm and produce a box of table grapes on the farm.
Yeah.
A lot of people are in the chain in terms of transport, in terms of exports,
Boxes and
cooling, shipping, etc., and technology. So there's lots of tech that you pick up these days, and everybody is taking a small piece of the pie in that chain. But there's a massive gap in terms of investment and proper funding at farm level.
It's very interesting when you go and look at a farmer and you look at the. If you take a picture of a farmer, single person standing there, and you look at all the people that they support, from the guy who buys his bakkie from, the guy who buys his seed or his little plants from, all the input costs, the farm workers, they are probably, if you go and look out there, in all supply chains, they're probably the individual profession that supports the most people. And they're normally the first person to spend money and the last person to get money back. So they will invest something and everybody gets their money before they get their money back on their investment.
Absolutely.
Klip gou of my jou mic hier so vas aan jou hemp. Ja, klip hom nie los.
So I think farmers people don't realize how important they are. They're literally that goose that lays the golden eggs.
Yeah.
Because if they're not there, all those other people, the people selling the seed, selling the fertilizer, selling the farming implements, the person doing the transport, cold storage, none of that would survive without the farmer.
Absolutely. You go to your rural areas, your small towns, but a whole town relies on that business performing. And we've seen over the last year, there's definitely an economic downturn in the South African space currently. And that's driven by inflation, it's driven by, the high input costs, fertilizer, chemicals, fuel. And then a lot of farmers got hit by climate, which you can't predict. And that's why a lot of your corporates don't want to invest in farming because of the climate.
You can't control
that, So the impact has been tremendous over the last year on a lot of the businesses, especially the smaller guys.
While we're talking on the negative subject of money, what do you, because obviously you travel all these things and you actually work with the figures on the ground. I saw a stat last week where they said that last year there wasn't a single avo or macadamia farm on the market in a low veld. Now currently there's 67.
Jeez. Yeah.
So we all know that there's blood in the streets, but how bad is it?
It is quite big in certain areas. We all know last year the citrus season was horrible for various reasons. A lot of it's got to do with port infrastructure. And we are, let's call it a third world country, exporting into first world countries. That's the business model for farming in South Africa. And we counter seasonal, and that's why it works, is to export table grapes in December to the Northern Hemisphere. And that's our backbone, is that we are counter seasonal and we're exporting into first world countries. So when something like port infrastructure doesn't play along, the impact of that is significant. Last year there was the strike in around September, and that killed the blueberry business. So the blueberries is the one, let's call it the one area in the space where everybody is watching now to see what's going to happen this year. Will the blueberry,
Because they're the first highly perishable product coming up for export.
for now, so the next couple of months in terms of will it go well? What will the prices be? For blueberries back to the farm will be a very good indication of where that market is going. And so I can mention a number of examples. This past table grape and raisin season in the Orange River was also not great because of climate and high levels of the Orange River that flooded a lot of farms in the Camus area. So there's a lot of farms in the market in the Northern Cape as well. For me, turning this into a positive is that it's short-term cycles, and if you want to be in agri, you need to have a long-term vision.
Yes.
You cannot be in the agri, especially primary production, if you are a 3 to 5 year investor.
Because that's how long it's going to take for trees to come in production.
Exactly. So you need to be 10 years plus, and know that it will go well again. In COVID, citrus did extremely well. It was amazing, and now it's the opposite. So it will recover again.
What advice have you got for small farmers that want to get into the space? Because if you look everywhere in the Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups, there's a lot of youngsters that want to get into the space, but they just don't know how to.
Of actually farming.
Yes. And maybe outside if you think of something.
Yeah. Coming from what we do, the advice would be is really crunch the numbers and really know what you're in for. When you want to buy a farm and you want to plant, let's call it table grapes, what does the cash flows look like? And really running through the numbers before you start spending money. Don't just do it on gut feel. The margin for failure is significantly higher than what it was. And that's why a lot of clients, and especially the next generation, are talking to us because they know they need to really look at the numbers. You cannot farm something, produce a product, export it, and then once the money comes in from overseas, then you start looking at what your profit is and your cash going to be like. But for a couple of months...
And a new cruiser and
Yeah.
And we're quickly going to go hunt a buffalo in Limpopo. And
we still have the challenge of farmers who... the last thing they want to do is to pay tax. I say, if you do have to pay tax, your business is actually doing well.
Yes. If you're in a situation where you have to pay tax, it's actually something you should celebrate.
Then it means that you made money.
Yes. It's a difficult pill to swallow, but a pill to swallow. But
it's a big bit to pull for me. I can't do that.
It is how it is. Okay, but now what's interesting for me is you started in the fruit industry, which has this incredibly long supply chain to export markets. And so much can go wrong along that supply chain. As you were saying about we producing in a third world country for first world countries. But our standards on the farm have to be up to the first world standard, and we have to take the risk of the whole consignment business going abroad. You also work with companies where the market is local. So basically, when the thing is produced, the people get paid for it and it doesn't travel very far. If you were to look at those two and how things have changed in the last 2 or 3 years, has there been a shift? Do you think local farmers are a little bit more protected than farmers that are exporting to export markets?
And is the export farmers looking to grow something or produce something that gets consumed locally?
It's just an interesting, because COVID and the whole supply chain hiccup with the harbours and the containers and the shipping freight costs and stuff like that has really slammed the export farmers hard.
Yeah.
And you're one of the people that straddles the export and the local market. Have you got a comment on that?
Yeah, it's difficult. Absolutely. So when your business is geared for exports, it's quite capital intensive. for instance, like you were talking about nets, to have nets on table grapes, on citrus is a very high capital infrastructure. To have packhouses that meets the standards of UK supermarkets is very expensive, and the cooling facilities, etc., etc. So your whole business is geared for export. And when something like that happens, and you have to sell local, you will not recover your investment, you know, in that sense. So the local market is, in terms of fruit that was destined for exports, is not strong enough to handle that amount of fruit.
Yes.
It's just not. It just doesn't. The math doesn't work.
And the consumer can't pay the same price.
Exactly. You can't.
Yes.
You can't put table grapes on the shelves at the same price that the farmer would get from Norway or from the UK, for instance. And the local consumers currently will look and make decisions. You know, will I buy blueberries, table grapes, or going to stick to, you know, bananas or something that's locally produced? My experience with the local market in terms of clients that only operates in that market, quite volatile, especially if you deliver your fruit to the open markets like your Joburg market or your Cape Town market. That is volatile. You take something like tomatoes, for instance. I've seen the highs and the lows in 1 year. So, and there's also a large amount of input cost that goes into producing something like that. So when you are a very small producer, you are quite exposed.
But have you seen any of these bigger guys that's geared for exporting and said, no, stuff this, I'm going to cut off all my trees, I'm going to have cattle on here, for instance, or I'm just going to grow butternuts, or...
What we see with the larger producers is that they have diversified, so and they are stronger, so they do have a buffer where they can absorb 1 or 2 bad seasons.
Okay.
And they can make that call and say, all right, we're not going to spend more money on the table grape crop, for instance. Well, let's produce raisins, because spending more money on table grapes is not gonna work.
Yes.
But that's not our only business. We do have 2 or 3 other agribusinesses as well, in other times of the year and in other divisions or sectors. So your larger guys will continue to grow and go forward. Whereas a really small farmer can, in a bad season, it could lead to a point where it could become bankrupt.
Yes.
It can definitely happen, and I've seen it happen.
Yes.
We take, for instance, an example where I know in the Western Cape a lot of farms were planting guavas, and the price was 5,000 rand a ton for exports to Brazil, and market crashed and the price dropped to 1,000 rand a ton.
And it all goes to juice now.
It all goes to juice, and the next thing is, so the model doesn't work anymore. So something like that's got a massive impact on someone buying a farm, doing plantings, spending, waiting it out. Yeah,
that's quite interesting, because we were talking about the guavas the other day. Is that you said that Europe don't know what a guava is?
Guavas are not
but
something.
Now we know it. It used to go to Brazil.
Okay.
What did they do with it as fresh fruit?
Fresh fruit, and then also for baby fruit. You know, for
that's a highly perishable thing.
Highly perishable. Yeah. Your risk also is, you know, what are you exporting? Something like blueberries, for instance, doesn't have the same travel time as table grapes, which can be in a container for 12, 16 weeks. So when it goes bad, then you've got a problem locally.
Yeah.
So outside of the fruit industry, you work with people I'm thinking about protein, and I'm thinking about the chickens and the ostriches and the beef and that kind of stuff. What's happening in those industries? I mean, we know we're paying more for that stuff in the supermarket. Are those people struggling, or are they actually doing well? What are you seeing there?
We've got clients that farms chickens and obviously ostriches and lamb and cattle, etc. What we're currently picking up, definitely sales have come down significantly, and that's driven by load shedding. So your supermarkets are not stocking up and keeping stock levels at the same as what they used to because of the risk. So again, that risk now shifts back to the producer that's producing chicken. So he needs to now, adjust, because the offtake that he used to have is no longer happening at the same speed as it used to be. So again,
So now they're sitting with live animals that they can't slaughter because no one wants to take them.
Yeah.
What do they do then?
I mean, you lose out. You write off a livestock batch, for instance. So and you take something like chickens. There's a certain age where over that.
Yes.
If you go from, let's call it 45 days to 50 days, you make a loss.
Yes.
Because of the feed conversion feed conversion ratio is not in your favor anymore. So currently in the South African economy, what we definitely see is the handbrake is pulled up. There's a slowdown in terms of buying the high-end value products, which will be lamb and
okay. Still out of the fresh produce sector, people like that could possibly go more direct to market instead of relying on a Checkers or a Woolworths or whatever to supply. They could possibly start their own brand, for instance, and sell directly to the public. But then again, that's a massive infrastructure requirement for that.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at let's call it your lamb producers in the Karoo or the Kalahari.
Yeah,
that concept of I've spoken to many of them. How can they sell from their farm a nice box of Karoo lamb,
because that will sell
straight to the door in Stellenbosch? How do you do that?
It's reinventing the supply chain, and I've actually noticed in the last while there are several new companies that are trying to do that are busy working at that. I've seen this trend, but that's reinventing the wheel a little bit. And you hope that they'll manage, but it's going to be quite a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely, because you are going to need infrastructure. For instance, a certified abattoir.
Yes.
And then transport. So at the end of the day, will you survive going that way, or will the bigger guys always win?
But just thinking about that, if you think about, because South African Postal Service has gone to the dogs, courier companies have really stepped up, and they are cooking. Like courier guy, my wife's got a little leather business, and if you send something now, 2 days later, at the most, it's anywhere in South Africa. And that's like Godsverlate vlakte there in the middle of the Free State. That lady will get a handbag. But then I think you can.
Perishable product is a little bit more complicated.
But if you've got let's say a lamb doesn't pack up in a big box. You don't need a thing the size of this table or chest freezer to transport a lamb. You can do it in 2 shoe boxes basically. And you can with a little bit of dry ice and whatever, you can courier that thing quickly.
COVID and technology has revolutionized the transport industry significantly. There's quite a lot happening in that space, without mentioning names. So, and that will play into the favor of producers trying to go direct to market and cutting out costs in the chain.
So I'm thinking you can even you can take your lambs to the local abattoir that's registered. You can make a deal with a butcher that can chop it up and keep it cold from there to be distributed. So instead of now getting 40 Rand a kilo for lamb, you can get 90 Rand. And everybody gets a cut along the line, and you're making double.
And as producer, you will do better.
Yeah, I might get slaughtered for what I just said. but the idea is there.
Yeah.
Earle, just let's get back to you and what you do. A little bit of any particular good news stories where they've been somebody that's really been struggling and you guys have helped them and they've really gone on their way? Got anything that you can share like that?
Definitely.
Maybe even more like an emerging farmer, or I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's go to Northwest and Gauteng province, where we were involved in a emerging farm financing vehicle that was set up to help a lot of up and coming farmers, which farms in tunnels, tomatoes, green peppers, cucumbers, etc. And our role was basically to help them with finances and doing monitoring on the project, and quickly saw that we need to take a step back to the fundamentals. There's a massive skills shortage in that space. So how do you actually do a budget? How do you actually do your cash flows and planning, etc.? And teaching that empowered farmer how to plan for that and how to actually do it, and going as far as teaching Excel and formulas, so very basic, almost like running a course on fundamentals of accounting and cash flows and budgets. And to see, and we were involved for, I think, 3 to 4 years, to see in that space how this business, and the specific scenario was a mom and daughter, and how they've grown, not just continuing running the farm, but actually starting to do their own budgets, and sending it to us and saying, "Oh, can you check this out? Am I on the right track here?" And moving out of that uncomfortable space of, accounting is this area where we're not qualified in, we're afraid of it.
Yeah, same with me. I left accounting in Standard 7 because I'm not going to copy for the next 2 years.
And to see them actually, starting to run their business, not just farming anymore, was quite nice to see.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So basically, as part of what you do, you empower people. It's like that thing about teaching the fishermen and then they can fish for themselves, not just giving them the fish, so teaching them and being able to let them go and do their thing. And you're doing, that's probably part of what you do all the time.
Definitely. And, in terms of our client base, it's not a given that we will have those clients forever.
Yes. Because you're going to get to a point where they don't need you anymore.
Yeah, so, and that's fine, because I know there will be a next one. So if that is the sort of route where you start with a client and you put things in place and you go from zero to everything is sorted out and this business is running, then I was successful.
Yes.
And I'm happy. And he's paid me for it. And he will always come back if he's got a question.
Oh, yes.
So we've had a number of those scenarios. So it actually, again, it's more. There's a lot more in it than just running a business.
And if you look at the trajectory of your business to date, where you started, what motivated you, what got you going, how you've grown to now. If you look into the future, do you see yourself and your business expanding further? And if so, in what particular fields?
No, for sure. It's the need is huge still. If you look at Southern Africa, agri is a big industry, and regardless of technology and everything that's happening, we're doing Zoom calls with farmers in the Northern Cape, which never existed. So, but the basic fundamentals in terms of what we do, there's still a huge gap for that. So we'll continue with the consulting business, and we're looking at different areas. For instance, the Limpopo, Mpumalanga area is as a region, was 2 regions, a space where we haven't done much. We've got 1 or 2 clients there. So one of my goals is currently to open an office in Nelspruit, and to replicate what we've done in the Western Cape in that area, because there's lots of farmers.
It's a big area.
From macadamias to sugarcane to bananas to obviously citrus.
But not just you. Right there, you've got Mozambique. Mozambique is cooking.
Absolutely.
Zimbabwe is cooking.
So there's a lot happening there.
Swaziland.
And what we do realize is it's quite vast in terms of the distances to travel and to see farmers and to meet farmers, and that's why actually opening an office in Nelspruit and employing people that comes from the area and knowing the farmers is what we're going to be doing. So that's on the cards for this year. But again, it's still the main bread and butter being consulting. Then in terms of the investment space, we are currently looking at an equity fund which would invest in primary agricultural farms. So there we are working with some guys that's a lot more clever than us in terms of private equity and how that whole space works and who's in that arena and who wants to invest in agri without owning a farm and without running the farm.
Exciting.
Yeah, so we're busy doing financial models and doing pitch decks and all sorts of new things I haven't done before in that space.
Okay.
And it's sort of a new venture.
Exciting.
If that comes off, it will be one of the first in South Africa. And it will be a different business model to the consulting arm.
Yes.
So yes,
that's exciting.
Good luck with that. It sounds very exciting.
Yeah,
I'll have to come and chat to you again in here when it's all happening.
So now we need to find people with money that wants to invest in agri. That's the.
Now I want to ask you something completely different. That's a very serious question. Now a very light-hearted question. You get to all kinds of places and you get to meet all kinds of people. Can you think of anything? Have you got any kind of like a really funny story or something really funny that happened to you? Or I mean, this is just like always that kind of throwaway question. And people will say to you, what is the most momentous or funny moment in your career? Something weird that happened to you? I don't know. We asked somebody and they said an old guy chased him with a shotgun.
Somebody said they didn't like to travel because they don't know if the dog understands footseek.
So, have you got anything like that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's the amazing part of the job is the places you go. So we were doing a financial model for a very large livestock ranch or farm in Zambia.
Okay.
About 2 years ago. Brilliant. I mean, people will pay to go on a safari and we go there to work and live on this farm. And the nice thing about going to these places is that there's always something to do in terms of activities. So like going for a run in the bush or whatever. So seeing a black mamba while running late afternoon happened.
Yes, okay.
And swimming in the lake across the manor house, which was croc infested, which we didn't know, was sort of, let's rather watch TV and keep the activities to a low. And then we're going to places like Peru and driving with 4x4 on a dirt road with a Peruvian guy, and you don't know if you're going to come back home alive. Visiting table grape farms was, and so I can go on and on. Visiting California with a couple of farmers from the Northern Cape. And getting on the plane in their khaki shorts and arriving in Los Angeles was also quite a sight.
Yeah. Well, we did that last year.
Yeah, I can imagine.
and then you get somebody walking up to you and says, "Are you from South Africa?" I said, "Yeah, how did you know?" I said, "Well, I saw the K-Way jacket, the K-Way shirt."
It's always a dead giveaway.
It's a dead giveaway. So now, exactly, there's I think that's to round up this part of the chat is. It's amazing people in South Africa. There's a different culture, and in the different regions, there's different cultures. And that's fundamental for us to understand that and to connect. And there's lots of great stuff happening, if you go to farms as well.
The word diversity is so often bantered around. It's like just a word, but in South Africa, we really are diverse. I sometimes look when you stop at a petrol station along the highway, you see all the different people arriving there. You just think, yes, we really do live in a very diverse country with different people, different languages, different heritages. And somehow we have to find a way to get on. And that's what makes it interesting.
When we did the first citrus live stream up in, we were in Bella, we stayed at the warm Warmbad.
Yes.
The resort.
Yeah.
So we went to the Spur, myself and Louise, first night. So I was sitting in the Spur. We got meal vouchers there. And we said, well, Louise says, I would like a Hunter's Dry. And the guy says, no, you can't order Hunter's Dry. This is a Muslim spur. I said, I've never in my life heard of a Muslim spur. I was like, okay, so look at the menu. Obviously, there's no spare ribs on the menu. So now we're still looking around. The music playing on the radio was Kirsten. It's a Muslim spur. They've got Kirsten on the thing. There's 3 other families in there, of which one was white and 2 were black, and our waiter's name was Darky. Remember that? Yes. I said, you can't get more. This is South Africa. This is, you won't find this anywhere else.
No, it's the bowl of what is in it is complex.
But it makes our country interesting, because when you go somewhere else where it's kind of generic, it's quite bland.
It's quite bland. It's quite boring, you know. Yes. So I mean, we can still do a lot, and it remains exciting. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So fascinating.
We've got a little closing tradition where the previous guy asks a question for the next guy. They don't know who they're asking it for, and you don't know who it's coming from. I'll tell you afterwards. But yeah. And it can be anything.
Yeah. It's normally quite generic, so don't worry.
Okay. So the question is, what would you envision as the next industrial revolution? Because at the moment we're going through this whole AI thing, and what do you think? If we're talking about the agri sector and what you're seeing, what could you envision could be the next big thing?
Yeah, so it is a very good question. I think the next big thing will be where your producer and your supermarket will get a lot closer to each other. I'm thinking you're seeing some of this happening overseas, where the supermarket is growing a lot of produce in a city.
Okay.
And that's where, so you don't need the transport anymore from rural places. You move into stuff like vertical farming, and the market and the producer is just closer to each other. It's a bit of a foreign concept. If you start Googling, start checking out what's happening in big cities, mega cities, that trend is definitely happening. So getting the producer closer to the supermarket and cutting out even more of the middle chain.
That's interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, well, thank you for that. And it's something that we have been hearing about, but particularly in the first world, where the huge cities, transport is a thing. So you're hearing about these vertical farms and stuff. So interesting.
It'll be nice to see that happening in the fruit space. It's very possible in the cash crops.
Yes.
Very interesting to see the future of fruit farms.
I've seen
the future.
I've seen stuff where they grew, I think either mangoes or bananas in like they grow blueberries in pots, in greenhouses.
Yes.
Which, look, I don't think it's impossible. Somebody must just do it.
Yeah.
And that's in South Africa, but we've always done it like that. I can figure it out myself.
That's the most dangerous saying, when people say we've always done it like that.
Yeah. You're behind, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
We really appreciate it, and I think we'll definitely come and chat to you again.
Yeah, yes, wonderful. Thank you.
No, for sure, especially when you've got all the new stuff, and again, please use us to get a message out if you need. The podcast is still small, but it's going to grow.
Absolutely. We'll definitely send it to some of our clients and to listen to what I said. And hopefully I don't get shot.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.